Now, ladies and gentlemen, this next panel is without question one of the most powerful in the evening. We talk about SHEconomy in terms of markets and boardrooms, but some of the most profound economic and social shifts are happening in spaces where women were never meant to be, where they had to fight and sometimes quite literally to let themselves in. The armed forces, the police, the paramilitary services, India's institutions of uniform. There are not just professions, they are citadels of identity. And historically, male structurally resistant to change, and yet the women on this panel walked through those doors anyway, making not only a mark for themselves, but also setting the stage for many other women like them who dream to defend the country, to represent the country in uniform, could perhaps learn an inspiring story from theirs. And our panel is titled, Breaking into the Male Bastion. Please welcome our distinguished panelists this evening, women who wear their service with extraordinary pride. May I please have on stage Captain Rupinder Kaur, Col Monika Mishra, Lieutenant Colonel Jaya Rani, Commander Bhavna Salaria. It would really help if we can welcome them with a huge round of applause, not only as women leaders in their respective spaces, but also as they don the uniform to defend the country. And moderating this session is News 9's Nivriti Mohan. Please welcome her on stage.
Good to see a hall filled with women over here, women leaders. And we have one of the most powerful women leaders present over here with us, because they are our soldiers. They are protecting our country, protecting all of us. Ma'am, there has been a lot of transformation going on within the armed forces in the past decade. And this transformation is defined by inclusion of women and their leadership in the armed forces. The number of women has also risen significantly over the past decade. There were around 3,000 women officers in the armed forces 10 years ago. And now we have 11,000 women officers that are there in the armed forces. So this is a huge change. And in policy also we have seen changes. We have seen National Defense Academy opening up for women, and earlier they were not taking in women, but now they are taking women in, and women are getting trained with their male counterparts at par with them and coming out as leaders, soldiers, fully trained and ready to take on any challenge that they get to face. So, ma'am, we are seeing women in command roles also. We are seeing women in women flying combat missions, and we are also seeing women sailing in the seas and also representing India in UN peacekeeping missions. So that's a huge achievement for women in armed forces, because it has not been long time that women have been included in armed forces. In 1992, I guess, when they were included in armed forces in non-combat roles. So how do you see it? Let me start with you, Colonel Mishra. You were one of the pioneers, because in 1992 it started, and in 1995 you got commissioned, only 2-3 years later. How was it then?
Good evening. So I'm a little nervous because we are not used to be seen in the civil. We work in the far-flung places, not interacted with civil people. So pardon my language. It's little Fauji lingo that I'm going to use. So you're right, Nivriti. The induction of women officers was started in 1992 with the training of first batch in the army. Navy was little ahead of us. They got commissioned in 92, 2 batches. But in army, The commissioning started the first batch was commissioned in March 93, and I had the opportunity of joining OTA in 1995 as a trainee and got commissioned in March 96. So back then, only 25, I'm talking about Army. So back then, only 2 batches per year, strength of 25 women cadets used to be trained in OTA. And after 6 months of training, they used to get commissioned. So the number of girls was very little. We were in scarcity. And back then, the policies were not, actually framed for us. It is only once the number of women officers increased that they started framing some policies after taking feedback. In my case, like, I joined Corps of Engineers. Being an engineer graduate, I chose to join Corps of Engineers. I did not do any combat wires. There was no policy for me to do combat wires. I was posted in a College of Military Engineering where the officers do their degrees. I was posted as instructor, never heard of in case of male officers. Then I was sent to a unit on an experiment basis for 3 months in 1996. And on the basis of the feedback, the wires courses for the lady officers in a Corps of Engineers was started with Jaya's batch. Right, Jaya? You were the first one to do wires. And then, based on the feedback, the girls were sent to the units. So, the evolution of policies, the policies were missing, the policies were being evolved based on the feedback taken from the environment. The employability was very restricted. We were treated with kid gloves. There was restraint, there was hesitation. The environment was not used to us, and we were not used to the environment.
You were an engineer, ma'am, and you were not allowed to do MTech course from the Army.
No, yeah, so I can't, I won't like to tell you that because there are certain internal policy matters which have taken time to shape up. It is still evolving. And back then, since we were new to the environment was not familiar with us. I would say we were used as gamlas. इनको headquarter में post कर दो और इनको instructor appointment दे दो. They should be sheltered. They should not be exposed. Whether they will be able to handle the toughness of the army or not, because it's a very, very tough job. It is a very demanding job. So from that to now, after 30 years, when I see girls, lady officers commanding the units as commanders, I feel a sense of satisfaction and a sense of gratitude. I always had faith in the system. I knew that the policies or the changes will be for better in the army, which happens everywhere. So all these years, there has been a shift. And I'm very sure the shift is going in the positive manner, and it will continue growing. The girls will continue evolving. The girls will continue forging ahead in the armed forces.
Right. So Lieutenant Colonel Jaya, let me ask you, in 2020 only, women got permanent commission in the forces. And after that only, they were allowed to go to the command positions. How do you see this development? And ma'am, you have commanded also.
Okay, so I would say as what I would, absolutely agree for the audience who are not aware of what we are talking about, let me, first let you all understand the point what we are talking about. So initially when the women officers were inducted in the army, we were inducted as a short service commission officers. Short service commission officers means that we were supposed to be serving, we were supposed to be having a tenure for 14 years. And thanks to the change in the policies and the judicial intervention, that we got a permanent commission starting from 1992 to 2020 is the year when we actually got the permanent commission. So you can imagine the number of years that we went through. It was almost more than 28 years that it took for the army to have this permanent commission built into our system. So I would say, see, any change is always better when it is not abruptly taken and it is taken in a phased manner. It is tried and tested. And since the environment was absolutely new, I would not say it was difficult, it was absolutely new for the army to get used to the lady officers. There was, I would say, it was never a case of, having a doubt on the capability or the ability of women officers. It was just that the entire system needed a policy framework, a change in the structure, the change in the entire organizational structure, and that is the time post the permanent commission, the women officers got the permanent commission, came one of the most landmark judgments wherein the case for promotions, for the convenience of the officers, convenience of the audience, I would explain the promotions was stalled beyond lieutenant colonel rank to the army officers, to the army lady officers, till such time we got the permanent commission. So post 2021 judgment of the Supreme Court, we lady officers started getting promoted to the rank of colonel, and that is when once you become or you take over the rank of colonel, actually that is the time when you get those command. And you can ask anybody, because we have a lot of audience I see who have an army background in some way or the other. Either they have their husbands, they have their kids, or they come from a forces background, their fathers, or no, they would understand what is commanding a unit means. Probably one of the most prestigious appointment that you can ever ask on earth. I mean, how does it feel to command a unit? So I would say it was a very well taken judgment, and we have all the females out there who proved it and proved it their worth of taking over the command. And we have one of them, Col Monika Mishra here, who got the opportunity to, take over the command of one of the units. So obviously it has been one of the best judgments that we would get, and a judgment which is taken not abruptly, gradual, tried and tested, is one of the best judgments. And that's the reason probably why we see the success stories of all the women officers out here.
Right, ma'am. And women are commanding, and they are commanding at one of the most difficult terrains. So I was there in Ladakh at Hanle. It is at around 15,300 feet where you cannot even breathe, less than 50% of oxygen, and a women officer was commanding. She has built the highest motorable road in the world. She has built an airfield. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Colonel Ponung Doming. She has built an airfield, and that too in less than 1 year, ma'am. This is what you don't do in plain areas as well. And she managed to do it at that altitude. Ma'am, let me come to Captain Rupinder. Your mother was commissioned in 1963, very, very long back, when a few women would join armed forces. Tell me about that, ma'am.
So thank you for having me on this panel and for having me here tonight. I've had the honor and privilege of being born in a family where the pioneers were just there from very early on. So my mother, Colonel Dr. S.K. Paul, joined the Army Medical Service in 1963 January, which was right after the war with China, when they were wanting more doctors in the army. And she went on to serve for 33 long years till she retired in 1995. We are talking about women and commanding independent units. My mother took over the command of a military hospital in a quaint little hill station called Pithoragarh in the late 1980s. And from there she went on to command a large military hospital in Amritsar, which was, to define it, a 250-bedded super speciality hospital in the early 90s. And she held that command for more than 3 years. And then to command the military hospital in Shimla, which was then called the Walker Hospital, from where she eventually retired. So I've been born in a family where I've had a mother who's had this distinguished service for 33 years and commanded early on, where in 2 of these hospitals she was the first woman to have held those positions. I don't know if it was the women of that generation or just the nature of who she was. Mm-hmm. She didn't think she was doing anything exceptional. She thought she was doing a job, and everything she did, even though she was the first in it, was just how you did those jobs in those times. I'll also just, say this one thing that I went on to join the army 37 years after my mother and got commissioned in the short service entry scheme in September 2000. And things were definitely very different for the non-medical side of the army versus the medical side of the army. But then, my mother used to still say that you all are trying to do in 7-8 years what has taken us about 40-50 years to do. So have some patience and, also have faith in your own abilities. The better you perform is also how quickly the system will change towards you. And today when I look at the permanent commissioning of women, right, or I look at the achievements that women are going to, I think her words ring very true in my ears.
Commander Bhavna Salaria, you told me that you are the first women officer in your family and in your village also. So how do children look up to you?
Good evening. Okay, so I am a third generation actually, and the first lady from my village and from my father's side and from my mother's side also to join Defense Forces. Now when it comes to the people from my family looking up to me, when I meet them, what I see in their eyes is a hope. And, they make me feel that this journey of mine is actually not mine. Through me, they see that, okay, there are these barriers which, people think, okay, if she's a girl, she's supposed to teach, she's supposed to nurture, she's supposed to take care of the family. So these barriers which has been set, which of all of us who are sitting here, we have already broken, we have crossed that fence. And I feel that, they take me as a guidance that, they can also, with hard work, with dedication, there is nothing which they cannot achieve. And there's one point I would like to make here. Defense Forces, for ladies I'm talking about, I'm sure the other panelists will also agree with me. All of us who are sitting here right in front of you, we didn't join Defense Forces because we wanted to earn. We joined forces because it was our passion. For me, it is like this, and I'm sure even they'll also agree to it. Ladies, if they are breaking barriers and joining forces, are doing it out of passion. And that is the reason why we we proved ourselves, the lady officers. Indian Navy was the pioneer in inducting ladies in 1992. I joined Indian Navy in 2002, 10 years after the first batch came. I'm thankful to the ladies who joined in 1992. They actually worked so hard that slowly and gradually armed forces, they started realizing that yes, ladies can be, given duties which they thought that probably only a man can take care of. If I have to give one example to you, way back in 1997, 1998, 4 ships were manned by assistant logistics officers, which were lady officers. They were sent on board. The lady officers served on board for 1 year, which we see now as a very big achievement. Like we have Commander Prerna, who's commanding a warship right now. But 1998, 99, 4 lady officers, they have already served on board ships. So that's...
Recently, ma'am, I had the privilege of going on board INS Vikrant, which is the most powerful warship of the Indian Navy.
Yes.
And I could see women officers on board.
Absolutely.
And not one, there were many.
There were many.
Yeah.
So even, for the ATC cadre, like it is an aircraft carrier. So Indian Navy was the first one to induct air traffic controller also, way before Indian Air Force decided to take them on board. 1993, we had our first batch of ATC officers who came on board. And with this, with resilience, with adaptability, with this thing that they have to work, they proved And now, you know, from non-combat roles wherein only 3 streams were open for ladies, today all the doors are open for lady officers.
Right. So Colonel Mishra, how's the training part of it? Is it any easier than how men are trained?
I think there is some misconception about the training that is imparted to the lady officers, lady cadets in the OTA. Way back in 1995, the training tenure was 6 months. Now it is at par with the men, with the male cadets. The training is exactly the same. I can tell you with certainty. The training regime is the same. The academic curriculum is the same. The physical and mental rigors that the cadets go through in academy are the same. The academy routine is exactly same. All the hobby classes, all the games period, all the PT periods are exactly the same. There is nothing that a lady cadet is not made to do in the academy. The only difference, because of the physiological differences in the sexes, is that in the physical, they are tested, the lady cadets are tested based on the benchmark which has been set, keeping in mind their physiological needs or the makeup. So that is the only difference. And the girls nowadays are outshining men. If you see, the induction of lady cadets is far less in number than male cadets, and that is why the cutoff for the girls in NDA is much, much higher than the boys. It's simple mathematics. You allot lesser seats to the girls, you skim the cream. So the girls are outshining boys. They are getting sword of honors. They are topping their courses. They are doing what boys do, exactly the same.
There's a little bit of advantage if you've come from an army background like I did, and I came as a 3rd generation army officer. Both my grandparents were in the army, and while I've talked about my mother, my father was also a general in the army. So I again had a little bit of that advantage of being familiar with what I was getting into. But having said that, it is very different when you are somebody's child in the army versus when you're yourself an officer and responsible for other people in the army. The training is absolutely butchering. There's no doubt about it. And especially if you have not come with a certain amount of physical fitness. And by the way, a lot of women who do come into the army and the defense forces do come from a little bit of sports background also, right? So, and they, I will say, have a little bit of an advantage from the physical side at least. Otherwise, the training itself is a bit of a killer. After that, I think it goes back to what a lot of the panelists are saying. The onus works both ways. I think just like we expect the men to be able to have us enter their bastion, yet be, I don't know, humble about it, adjusting about it, okay about it, the onus is also on us to not get uncomfortable. When you're going to be 1 in 10,000 posting in Srinagar, I did 1 posting of 2.5 years there in my tenure as well. The onus is also a lot on you to build that comfort in yourself. And to be very honest, the only way I felt that comfort gets built is by doing your job well. You know, nothing beats performance and nothing meets merit in the long run. My background could have made it easier for me just putting the first foot in, but it purely is performance and conduct after that. And I think the onus lay a lot on the women officers themselves to also find that.
Lieutenant Colonel Jaya, how special is it donning your uniform?
Oh, how special is it? Oh, I can't, I can't put a word to it. Probably the pride that you wear is, the uniform that you wear is the pride that you wear, So I would say you know, how special it is, probably you don't realize while you're wearing it. You know, we all came into the army. I served in the army for close to 24 years, and I took premature retirement in the year 2021. While I was wearing my uniform all this while for 24 years in the army, I used to feel it like a regular routine. I mean, how is it different from the rest of the days? I didn't feel the importance of, you know, wearing of that uniform and how much of confidence it gives you. It's not that otherwise, if you're not wearing a uniform, you're not confident. I'm not talking about that. The importance of uniform, I realized the day I could not wear my uniform. That is the day I moved out of the army. I mean, that is the time I can, you know, vouch for it. Most of us realize the importance of the uniform only the day we are told this is the last day in uniform, and post that this uniform is not part of your life anymore. I can tell you, while I was in the army, I used to envy all the pretty ladies who are sitting here that, oh, why could I not wear those smart dresses? Why I can't do all the makeup that as a girl I used to, as a girl, what I should be doing. And I really used to envy. And today when I get a chance to actually do that, I feel yet I love the simplicity what I had while wearing the uniform still overtakes the joy of, you know, doing a lot of makeup or, you know, wearing those smart ones.
Ma'am, it was lovely talking to all of you, and this reminds me of a few lines, and I would like to read these lines for you. So these are in Hindi and written by Sarveshwar Dayal Saxena. So I'll read it out, ma'am, for you. चिड़िया को लाख समझाओ कि पिंजरे के बाहर धरती बहुत बड़ी है, निर्मम है, वहाँ हवा में उसे अपने जिस्म की गंध तक नहीं मिलेगी। बाहर समुद्र है, नदी है, झरना है, पर पानी के लिए भटकना है। यहाँ कटोरी में भरा जल गटकना है। बाहर दाने का टोटा है, अंदर चुग्गा मोटा है। बाहर बहेलिए का डर है, यहाँ निर्द्वंद कंठ स्वर है। फिर भी चिड़िया मुक्ति का गाना गाएगी। मारे जाने की आशंका से भरे होने पर भी पिंजरे से जितना हो सकेगा अंग बाहर निकालेगी। हर सू जोर लगाएगी और पिंजरा टूट जाने पर या खुल जाने पर उड़ जाएगी। थैंक यू वेरी मच। थैंक यू सो मच।